Hey folks, leave some love and let's jump in. The story begins with a price scanner machine scanning the price of a pack of gum. The boy at the counter tells the customer, "That'll be 401, sir." The customer hands over the money and walks away. The boy bids him, "Have a good day." The boy, Kim Gibong, a 20-year-old university student, appears to live life to the fullest while working part-time at a convenience store. However, he secretly despises his mundane existence and is bored of the same daily routine. Reflecting on his dreary life, he sighs when he sees his mom's message asking what he's doing. He replies that he's at work as usual and inquires what's wrong. His mom informs him that today is payday, and she just wanted to check in. Kim realizes his mom remembers payday better than he does. He messages her back, promising to buy spicy chicken and fried chicken for her. She suggests getting soy sauce chicken instead of fried. Suddenly, an explosion jolts Kim. His phone clatters to the floor. Rushing outside, he witnesses massive monsters ravaging the city. Shocked, he exclaims, "What the hell?" Convinced it's a dream, he flees the scene. As he runs, he ponders where these monsters came from. Tripping, he falls, observing his legs lying separately. Confused and bleeding, he spots a colossal tentacle monster and wonders, "Did I cause this?" He closes his eyes, and everything fades to black. He opens his eyes, and a system makes an announcement. Activate the Human Awakening Program. Initiating an awakening test. Gibong wonders, awakening? His severed body parts suddenly rejoin. Bewildered, he wonders where he is. Shocked to see his legs restored, he tries to comprehend the bizarre events unfolding around him, leaving his mind blank. The system displays again, greeting him as a player and welcoming him to the awakening area. Confused, Kim questions if he's inside a computer. The system responds by initiating the awakening test, generating a monstrous creature before Kim's eyes. The system explains that Kim's task is to attack the test monster, which will automatically disappear upon being touched or struck, whether it's damaged or not. Kim protests, exclaiming, "What is this nonsense? How am I supposed to even touch these monsters?" The monster screeches and attacks Kim. Convinced he's facing death, Kim thinks it's over. The system declares Kim has failed the awakening test and begins to regenerate his body. Kim watches in shock as his body regenerates, noticing a bloody corpse nearby and realizing it's his own. Overwhelmed, he vomits upon seeing his lifeless body. While vomiting, he thought about the regeneration process in disbelief. The monster reappeared, and Kim tried to run again, but the monster cut his body into two parts. His head fell to the ground, tears in his eyes. The system announced that he had failed the awakening test, and his quest is to attack the monster. Kim shouted in disbelief, asking how he was supposed to kill this monster. The system told him that it's impossible to kill the monster. The test monster is a transcendent existence according to the program, and it was impossible to kill it from the very start. Kim thought that the system actually answered him, so he asked the system again where he was and why it brought him here. The system informed him that this place is the player's awakening test area created with fairness in mind. Kim thought in confusion, player? Awakening? Fairness? The system again told him that humanity is a species with the potential to awaken. Once he awakens his abilities and lands a hit on the test monster, the awakening test will be over, and he will be sent back to reality. He does not need to worry about dying during the test. No matter how many times he dies in the game, his body will be regenerated. Kim thought that the system only sees him as some sort of game character and wonders if this is a fantasy novel or something. But he knew that he had no choice but to trust the system because he already saw all his corpses surrounding him. He thought about the system's words that he was a player and that he never had a choice from the beginning to kill the monster. The monster attacked him again. Kim thought that he only had two options, either to continue dying in agony or accept this situation as is. This time, he counterattacked the monster. The system announced that his awakening was successful, and he had obtained a skill and ability. His status showed that his strength was 25, agility 11, and magic power 12. His awakened skill was body enhancement. Kim knew that there was only one thing he could do: accept everything and endure the damned test. He killed the monster with a single hit, and the system announced the damage and the completion of the awakening test. His quest was cleared. Kim shouted in happiness. But still seeing himself inside the game, he asked the system why it was not ending the test and getting him out of there. But the system showed an error and told him that due to an unknown error, he could not exit the test area. This disappointed Kim. The awakening test restarted again. Kim shouted in disbelief that he couldn't leave this test area and thought that if he were to compare this to a game, it was like a bug, and he was like a game character affected by the bug, stuck in space. 1 week passed like this, then 1 month, then 1 year. His mind was slowly being whittled away. He thought that if his body was being regenerated, the same was not true for his mind. The system informed him that his health stat had increased and his backup data was being adjusted. Shocked, he asked how this was possible. The system told him that due to the continuous attacks his body received, his health stat had increased. Kim shouted that he did not care about that and asked if the system had adjusted the error. The system answered that the error had not been adjusted or fixed, and that he could not escape this place forever. Time passed. 2 years, then 3, 4. He tried running away with all his strength and resisting against the test monster. His stats and levels increased day by day. But in the end, it was all pointless because the monster could not die at all, and then he gave up resisting. In the 10th year, he asked the system about what was happening on Earth. The system answered that Earth had not changed much, and that time in this dimension was 300 times faster than his world. 10 years here were only 12 days in the outside world. Kim thought about his last conversation with his mom and sighed, "I need to buy chicken for mom," in disappointment. 500 years passed. His memories started to become faint about his family, friends, and even who he was. The only question he had in his mind was why this happened to him. He shouted in agony, "Why? Why? Why?" He did not care about awakening, fairness, being a player. He had only one single question. Why was he the only one with this error? He just wanted to live an enjoyable life filled with excitement. The only way he could direct his anger and fury was on the monster, so he continuously tried to kill it. Time passed, and 10 years had passed in the outside world since humanity's awakening day. The system faced an error again, that an immeasurable amount of damage was affecting the server from within, and the firewall of the system had been destroyed. Kim destroyed it and finally went back to Earth after 3,000 years. His levels and stats increased to an infinite level. The system showed a system error, making it impossible to connect to the main system. It started self-synchronization. For the first 300 years, Kim had always wondered what he would do first if he managed to return to reality. He thought about his last conversation with his mom. The system announced that synchronization was complete and 10 years had passed on Earth. He asked the system about his mother's location, but it answered that it couldn't locate her because the function was not available in offline mode. Kim thought the system was useless as usual and decided to go to his home phone. However, when he reached his house, the entire place was destroyed. He was shocked to see it. 2 soldiers passing by told him that the area was restricted to civilians and advised him to head to the safe zone immediately. Kim was shocked to see soldiers and asked them why the neighborhood was restricted. The soldiers looked annoyed and asked if he had been living under a rock, explaining about the dungeon break 10 years ago that caused all this destruction. Kim remembered the monsters he had seen before entering the game and asked about the people living there. The soldiers told him that everyone inside had died. He couldn't believe it. Did his mother die too? The soldiers added that residents who were outside their houses had been evacuated to a safe zone by the government. If he was looking for someone, he should head. Before finishing his sentence, Kim grabbed one of the soldiers by the collar and demanded to know where that place was. The soldier informed him it was the Moontown in B-Zone. Kim ran off upon hearing this. As Kim left, the soldier's walkie-talkie announced that a dungeon break had been detected, estimated to be in the migrant community sector of B-Zone's Moontown. In the B-Zone migrant community sector, many jeeps and soldiers were seen. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Hyung-kyan of the City Defense Force was visibly concerned, shouting to secure the area and requesting reinforcements urgently, as they were unable to handle the situation alone. He asked a soldier about the forces from the guild and why they were late. The soldier replied that they had just set out. The colonel punched a rock in anger, frustrated that guild members were being lazy just because it was in the Moontown area. He predicted that if they were asked to speed up, they would demand more funds. First Lieutenant Lee Jian asked the colonel what they should do now. The colonel shouted back, asking if she thought they should head inside without support and die with the civilians. "Shut up and build the defense line," he commanded. "If the monsters escape to other areas, we will all be dead." Meanwhile, Kim arrived in the B-Zone area and saw all the soldiers in jeeps. He wondered why there were so many soldiers. He asked the system about what was going on in the area. The system replied that a dungeon break was about to occur in the B-Zone, and a dungeon would be generated in around 3 minutes. Upon hearing the word dungeon, scenes of monsters from his past came flooding back to Kim's mind. He thought angrily that his mother was in danger. He entered the area, and a soldier tried to stop him, warning that a dungeon was about to break and to evacuate to the safe zone. Kim pushed the soldier aside with a single blow. Upon seeing Kim inside the zone, the colonel shouted, "Who let a civilian inside? Stop him!" All the soldiers pointed their guns at Kim and surrounded him. Kim shouted angrily, "Get lost!" The soldiers were afraid of his aura and backed away. Lee Jian yelled at the soldiers, asking how they could let a civilian inside. One soldier informed her, "That man is a player." Kim walked toward the location of the dungeon break. The sky cracked open, and a huge monster emerged from the dungeon break. Panic ensued as soldiers shouted that it was impossible to kill those monsters with their guns. Lee Jian also questioned where the reinforcements from the guild were. She started running toward the monsters. Meanwhile, Kim was inside a building when the system notified him that the dungeon had been generated and it was ranked 5 stars. Kim thought angrily about those dungeon monsters. A monster tried to attack him, but he killed it with a single blow. Another monster attempted to attack, and Kim caught it, threw it away, and shouted, "Don't get in my way." He easily dispatched the monsters one by one. Lee Jian saw Kim fighting the monsters and wondered if he had really stopped a 5-star dungeon break that even tanks and fighter jets couldn't stop on their own. When Kim finally killed all the small monsters, it enraged the boss monster, and it entered the field. The system notified him about the appearance of the boss monster, and that the dungeon break would end when the boss monster was killed. Kim walked towards the boss monster. Lee Jian was shocked to see a 5-star class boss monster. She saw the survivors standing and thought that she needed to evacuate them and ordered them to run away. The survivors were in a panic. The small monsters started to move, and the survivors ran for their lives. Among them was a small girl who shouted for someone to save her while running. She tripped, and her mother saw her, telling her to get up. The small monster was near them and attacked, but Kim interfered and killed it instantly. They thanked him and ran away. Kim asked the system to find his mother. The system received the order and scanned the area using top layers of memories as a reference. After completing the scan, the system announced that the corresponding subject was not available. It pained Kim. He thought about his family, reflecting, "In 3,000 years, I've thought of them over and over again so that I wouldn't forget about them. But now my memories are so faint." The boss monster screeched loudly and projectile barrage toward Kim. Kim activated his body enhancement skill, and his awakened mode turned on. With his last memories running through his mind, he counterattacked its attacks. Lee Jian was shocked to see how he directed the boss's attacks away from the town, not missing a single one. The boss was even more enraged now. It prepared a huge attack, but Kim was also prepared. He used all his might to hit the boss, and the dungeon break ended. Kim cleared the whole area with his final blow and then deactivated his skill. He felt so tired and heard his name, Gibong, calling out. He looked in the direction of the voice. The system scanned the voice and announced that it matched the data in the player's members. Upon hearing the voice, Gibong thought about the past 3,000 years quickly going through his mind. The emotions that had dried up during those long centuries suddenly resurfaced and poured out like a broken dam. He began to cry and softly said that it was his mother who had aged now. Both of them ran toward each other while the pamphlets of Kim's missing flew in the air. They hugged each other and cried. His mother asked where he was and how she searched for him everywhere. Kim, while crying, apologized to his mother that he could not get chicken for her. While they were reuniting, a huge sword-like thing hit her mother. Kim, in disbelief, asked, "Mom?" For 3,000 years, he became stronger while standing atop his enemies. But his powerful body could not protect the person he loved the most. It was one of the monsters who had hurt his mother. Kim held his mother while the monster attacked again. But this time, Lee Jian interfered and shot the monster. Kim called his mother again and again, but she asked him not to cry, telling him she loved him, then got unconscious. Kim cried out loudly in pain. Now, in the building of the Seoul Defense Force 39th Battalion, the colonel sat in his office and asked Lee, "Isn't it noisy these days?" She agreed. While lighting a cigarette, he inquired about Kim. "What's he doing?" She replied that he was clearing the dungeons and had already destroyed all those nearby, which had increased dissatisfaction among the guilds. It seemed they would make a move soon. The colonel handed her an envelope with instructions inside and ordered her to bring Kim Gibong before he lost control. In a forest, explosions were happening, and monsters were being thrown around. Kim fought the monsters, killing them one by one without stopping, but they kept reappearing. A huge army of monsters stood before him, but he was ready to fight. He activated his skill, using a sword. A blue light filled the area. Then, the system showed that all monsters had been eradicated and the dungeon cleared. It began to rain. Kim sat there in the rain until someone put an umbrella over him. It was Lee Jian. She told him she had been looking for him and introduced herself as Lieutenant Lee Jian from the Seoul Defense Force. She acknowledged they had met before, but not under favorable circumstances. Kim didn't reply. She continued, saying she understood his feelings, that destroying all the monsters in dungeons was meaningless since they reappeared after a certain time. "You're just venting your anger." Kim asked if he should stay still. She replied she didn't mean that. Kim continued, "For 3,000 years, his bones shattered and his flesh tore apart daily. After spending an eternity, he managed to return. Even when his body broke apart and turned to dust, he still returned from that hell to be where he belonged with his family. But all that effort was in vain." He stood up and asked her if she was telling him to suck it up, to endure it again, then walked away. Lee thought for a moment, then told him, crying, that she would help him with his revenge, help him destroy the dungeons and monsters, and asked him to come with her. 6 months later, we see a hospital building. Inside one of the rooms, Kim's mother lay on a hospital bed. Kim watched her from the mirror and told her he had become a public officer with a high rank, so he couldn't visit her often, just as other government workers were too busy. He asked her not to be disappointed if he couldn't come often and left, promising he would be back. As he left the IQ room, many people in uniforms stood outside and saluted him. He transformed into his skill activation form and ordered them, "Let's go." In a mountainous area with monsters flying around, it was their mission area. Kim has to fight a huge eagle-like monster. He activated his skill, and blue light filled the area. In a bar, the TV broadcasted the news that the government had announced the end of Shield Guild's defense service offer in the metropolitan area. A man wearing a suit and hat sat at the counter, drinking, while another man approached him and asked why he was there. The man replied that he was there to have the same drink as Scout Team's captain, Baek Cheol, referring to him. Baek Cheol removed his hat and inquired about the man's original purpose. The man appreciated his straightforwardness and asked if he had heard about the man who had caused the recent uproar. The news broadcaster continued, reporting that it was related to the recent drop in dungeon breaks, and apparently, the government had found a self-reliant way to deal with dungeons. The man continued talking to Beak about the man, stating that he was a serious setback for their business. Beak Cheol asked ominously if he should eliminate him. The man replied that Beak was always talking about eliminating and passed him some papers, saying they had orders to find and recruit the man, instructing Beak to treat him like a team captain. Beak said he understood and left. The man shouted from behind that Beak had not finished his cup, questioning why he was leaving already. Beak replied that it was finished. Meanwhile, in a mountainous area now classified as a 5-star dungeon called the Monstrous Bird Nest, bird-like monsters were flying. Kim arrived there with his team. The system informed him that they had entered a 5-star class dungeon and a dungeon break was imminent. There was a whole flock of bird-like monsters in the area. One of his team members informed him it was the last dungeon scheduled to break for the month. Kim ordered his team to stand by one place and entered the dungeon, asking the system about the location of the boss. As Kim eliminated monsters one by one, the system began scanning for the boss's location. The scan was almost complete when he was surrounded by monsters from all sides. The system informed him that the boss's location was 12.5 kilometers south. Kim activated his skill and instantly killed them all, then headed towards the boss's location. When he reached the location, the system informed him and stopped the navigation process. The boss was a huge eagle-like monster named Ultra Boss. The vice captain on standby asked the man about the dungeon situation, who was observing everything with binoculars. He said it would end soon because the Captain Kim was dominating the field and it seemed like the real monster was their captain. The vice captain said they should move soon to recover all the spirit stones and leave nothing behind. Everybody agreed. Suddenly, there was a flash of light behind them at the dungeon entrance. A girl emerged and killed the vice captain. A group of people came out from the entrance. Kim's team asked them who they were. The girl told their captain that if the man was dead, then he was probably not Kim Kibong. The captain of the team was actually Beak Cheol. He asked them which one of them was Kim Kibong. Meanwhile, in the field, Kim Kibong was still fighting with the boss. The boss sent a fireball at him, but he dodged it. Hearing a distant explosion, Beak Cheol concluded that Kim Kibong was not among them, but was fighting with the monster. Now, he had no option except to kill his team members until Kim showed up. Deep in the jungle, a voice said that he was there. It was very scary, and he didn't know why. The voice suggested it might be due to the rift from earlier. The man with white hair wondered what exactly the rift was, admitting he didn't know, and emphasized the need to check if the rift was poisonous to them. While with the monster, the system generated another trait for Kim of resistance. Kim decided to end it now and hit the monster with a deadly blow, and the monster tore apart in 2 pieces. The system informed him that the boss monster had been killed and the dungeon cleared. Kim saw something flashy on the ground. It was like a ball. He picked it up and thought he had never seen something like this. He asked the system about it. The system told him that it is the Daystone. He asked for further information about the Daystone, but the system answered that due to offline mode, it is not possible to find more information. It disappointed him that the system doesn't know anything. The system generated a warning signal that the battle had begun at the dungeon entrance. At the dungeon, Bak Cheol is brutally hitting Kim's team members. He even broke one of the members' teeth. When all the team was defeated, he walked away, saying that none of them are Kim Kibong. One of his members informed him that someone had killed the monster and cleared the dungeon. Bak thought that the explosion he heard earlier was Kim Kibong fighting. He ordered his team members to let go and find a way to get down this cliff as they were leaving. They heard a huge sound behind them, and the area was filled with dust. Kim had arrived. His members finally sighed that he was here. He walked towards Beak Cheol. Bak told him that he was looking for him and introduced himself as the captain of the Shield Guild's scout team. As Kim was walking, Bak felt an overwhelming aura being generated from him like a monster and started to tremble. He was shocked to see the aura and thought that he was trembling. Kim asked, "Did you say the Shield Guild?" Bak's team member shouted from behind, warning him to watch his tone. But Bak Cheol gave him a shut-up call and answered Kim that yes, sir, as he was told to treat him like a team captain. He thought that for him, captain is far too low a rank. Bak Cheol thought that they had to make him agree to join the guild even if they had to give up their execution position. He said to him that even he had heard about their Shield Guild and told him that they are the strongest guild of South Korea and offered him to join the guild. And if he accepts the offer, they will grant him any wish he wants. Kim's team members thought that he was saying the right thing. The salary of a large guild's team is at least 3 billion won, and they have a lot of influence. If the captain left the squad, then there would be nothing left. Bak's team members also thought that being scouted by a large guild is a turning point in life and that it was an attractive offer that no one would refuse. Kim said that he only had one question. Beak told him to ask. He asked him whether the Shield Guild was in charge of the capital city's defense and whether they were also in charge of the migrant sector of B-Zone's Moontown. Bak replied, "Of course, and not only that area but also." Before he could complete his sentence, Kim threw him away with a blow. Bak's team asked him what the hell he was doing. He answered that he was paying Bak for touching his men and thought tauntingly that it had nothing to do with his personal feelings. Shield Guild is the strongest and the greatest guild. They have been protecting the capital area where high-rank dungeons are amassed. They are South Korea's shield and have over 5,000 members, including the 3S rank players of South Korea. Bak thought upon seeing Kim Kibong fighting with his team that he was wiping the floor with them like dirt rags, and it looked like he didn't care about them at all. In Shield Guild's office building, there was chaos as guild members were being admitted with serious conditions. The director thought that's why he had told them to recruit him peacefully. Nurses greeted the director. He told them that he needed to talk with Captain Beak, so they should leave them alone. The nurses replied that he was still unconscious. He went to him, saying that he would figure something out, so the nurses left. The director, on seeing Beak totally beaten, felt disappointed but still wanted to hear what happened, so he injected him with a medicine that brought him out of unconsciousness. The director said to him that he looked terrible. He apologized to the director. The director asked him to explain in detail what happened. He replied that the entire scout team was defeated by a single man, Kim Ki-bong, himself. The director asked him if he was that strong. Beak admitted that he was and his power was immeasurable. He said that he had only one question. Would he fare against their guild master? Beak Cheol could not make a decision. The director thought that the two were transcendent beings who were out of Beak's reach, as he could not see beyond the wall and compare them. Beak said he didn't know. The director asked whether they could successfully recruit him. Beak replied that he did not think so because he bore hostility against them, and a very extreme one. The director stood up to leave and told him to rest, informing him that he was woken up by a drug, so he would feel awful. Beak said that he understood. While walking in the corridor of the building, the director thought that he had to deal with him before other guilds took him in and made a decision. He called someone and ordered to send a kill order to the voice master over the phone. While walking away, he thought if they cannot recruit him, they must eliminate him so he would not stand in their way. Now, in a 4-star dungeon of Abyssal Beach, there are huge monsters with tentacles, and Kim fights with them. While fighting, he asked the system a question about the Daystone. The system answered that it is a black orb that he had picked up previously. Kim said that he already knew that and asked if there was anything else. The system told him that it was impossible to search due to offline mode, but it could absorb the Daystone. He asked what would happen if it absorbed the stone. The system replied that if it absorbed it, then it could be upgraded and could access the source of the dungeons. Kim told the system to absorb it, and the absorption process started. In the city, people saw a strange man roaming around with a sketch in his hand. He asked the people about the person in the sketch. Meanwhile, on the dungeon site, the stone started to emit light. The sketch that the man was showing was so unclear and childish that people couldn't recognize it. The light emitting from the stone formed a huge tower-like shape, and the absorption was completed. The man with the strange attire said that he found Kim Kibong. After absorbing the stone, a new function was added to the system, which included human analysis and emotion expression. Kim Kibong pondered whether human analysis differed from the normal human search function. The system explained that this function enables it to learn detailed information about someone, including their height, weight, birthday, etc. Additionally, if the subject is a player, the system can learn about their stats. Kim remarked that this was interesting, noting that the system would now be a little more useful. Kim then flew from the dungeon site to the city and asked the system for directions to the nearest bus stop that could take him back to the army. The system received the instruction and informed him that the nearest bus stop was 1.5 kilometers away from his current location. Curiously, the system asked why he was walking instead of flying there. Kim thought it was the first time the system had asked him a question, possibly due to the recent upgrade. He explained to the system that Lieutenant Colonel O had instructed him to walk to prevent chaos within the Air Force. The system acknowledged understanding and displayed some emoticons. Kim considered asking about them but refrained. While walking through the city, Kim Kibong noticed someone trailing him. Was he part of the Shield Guild's team? But something felt off. Kim sensed no hostility from him. Deciding to test the human analysis function, Kim ordered the system to analyze the person following him. The system received the command, but the analysis failed, leaving Kim frustrated with the upgrade's apparent uselessness. Kim continued walking until he reached the bus stop and sat down. The system then warned him about the pursuer approaching. A man with white hair soon stood in front of Kim and asked him who he was. The man sat down beside him, smiling. When the bus arrived, Kim chose not to engage further and boarded it. While seated on the bus, Kim glanced around and was surprised to see the man sitting beside him once more, smiling. This shocked Kim for the first time since his escape from the awakening area. In the 4-star dungeon of Giant Snake Swamp, giant snakes slithered menacingly until a red-haired man appeared, effortlessly dispatching each serpent with his sword. In a swift display of skill, he eliminated them all before pausing at a sudden noise. Reacting instantly, he hurled his weapon towards the sound and demanded the person reveal themselves. The director emerged, cautioning the man identified as Vice Guildmaster Sword Emperor Park Taram of the Shield Guild that it was risky. Park greeted him with a wry comment about the director's ongoing stealthiness. The director jokingly retorted about Park's sharp tongue and warned him about the corrosive venom that could damage weapons, emphasizing their limited resources. Park pressed for the reason behind the director's visit. The director hesitated, realizing Park's isolation inside the dungeon. He then disclosed urgent news: there was someone who needed eliminating. Disinterested, Park suggested assigning the task to a scout team. The director revealed that previous attempts by the best special forces of the Shield Guild had failed miserably. All members were annihilated. This revelation deeply surprised Park, as these elite forces were renowned for their prowess against players and interpersonal combat skills, equipped with the guild's finest gear. Park's initial curiosity turned to serious attention as he contemplated the gravity of the situation. Inside the building, amidst the Prime Minister's office, a scene of grim horror unfolded. Blood painted the walls, and Park sat calmly on a chair, a chilling smile on his face as he surveyed the room littered with lifeless bodies. As the door creaked open, Prime Minister Gu Xiangrong entered with her team, her presence commanding despite the chaos around her. She was not just South Korea's Prime Minister, but also an S-rank player, renowned for her unmatched abilities in the virtual world. She had chosen the path of a politician to safeguard more lives than she ever could as a warrior, earning her the title of South Korea's hero. Park greeted her casually, remarking on the passage of time and inquiring about her well-being. His familiarity irked her, and she responded sharply, brushing off his concern and insisting he not address her in such a manner. Park laughed and remarked that she was still as cold-hearted as ever, teasing her about being too harsh after 3 years of separation. With her men sprawled lifelessly around them, Prime Minister Gu Xiaongrong responded in a cold tone, acknowledging the passage of 3 years. Drawing her sword, she cast a purple light that filled the room and conjured magical stars around her. She asked Park if he had forgotten her temper in such a short time span. She was among the first-generation awakeners on that day, demonstrating her formidable teleportation skill as she transported him to another area. Meanwhile, Gibong arrived at his base with a man still tailing him. Soldiers queried whether the man was Kim's brother, but Gibong denied any knowledge of him. They informed the man that ordinary citizens were not permitted entry. In his room, Gibong contemplated the stones required to enhance the system's intelligence. While changing clothes, he glimpsed the same mysterious man outside his window, still under surveillance by soldiers. Back in the heated confrontation between Xiaongrong and Taram demanded that Gibong be handed over. Xiaongrong disclosed that she was aware of Shield Guild's intentions, and due to Gibong's efforts in dungeon breaks, the government had opted not to renew its contract with them. With no share of the country's taxes forthcoming, the guild had tried to recruit Gibong with promises of wealth and prestige, but he had declined and annihilated their team. Taram acknowledged the truth in this, but asserted that they had erred in challenging her. With a smile, she mocked Taram, stating that she needed a good beating reminiscent of their past. Meanwhile, the soldiers in the base caught the mysterious man. When Gibong asked why he was following him, the man replied that he wanted to see him. Gibong asked for his identity and how he knew him. The man claimed that he knew Gibong had emerged from the rift, which surprised Gibong. The man expressed his curiosity to observe Gibong closely and asked to live with him. The vice-captain interfered and warned him about the military's limits, so the man requested to be a soldier so that he could stay there. The vice-captain laughed and said that he can be a soldier only on one condition: he must win against him. Gibong tried to stop him, but the vice-captain insisted that he would punish the man for his rude behavior with Gibong. The man questioned him if everyone else on the team has also won against him to join, to which the vice-captain responded by cursing him and inviting him to come at him, claiming to be the weakest of all. Taram caught Xiaongrong off guard by dispelling her skill and took out a return stone. She tried to stop him using the stone, but it was too late. Taram reminded her that she's Korea's hero and crushed the stone while challenging her whether she can protect those who are close to her. The stone activated and Taram vanished, leaving her in the area. She thought that no doubt Gibong is strong and an S-ranked, but the same goes for Taram, and he also has the myth-grade weapon, Light Dragon's Fang, and also the worst possible opponent for Kim. Meanwhile, in the base, the fight began between the vice-captain and the mysterious man. The vice-captain threw a punch at him which he easily dodged, and asked him if he could win against him he could stay, and began to throw a punch at him. The vice-captain felt an overwhelming power, but Gibong interfered and stopped him. The man asked his name. He replied Gibong, and in return, Kim also asked his name. He told him it was Kang Hwi. The vice-captain told Kim that he can't face someone like him. Kim answered him that knowing how to analyze your opponent's strength is an important skill. He admitted his mistake. Kang then asked Kim if his words were directed toward him. Gibong asked him if he still wished to fight him or not. Kang expressed his desire to fight him. Kim's team members thought that it was crazy because they have been observing Kim for the last 6 months and knew his strength. The vice-captain admitted that Kang was strong, but also knew that Gibong was on another level. Kang started to attack him, but Gibong dodged it easily and tried to hit him with his leg, but Kang also blocked him. Gibong continued with the attacks and asked him about his identity and purpose, but Kang refused to tell any information, saying that it was a secret. Kang kicked Gibong, which shocked him because it was the first time he had been knocked back. Then Kang launched an energy ball attack on him, which he deflected and thought whether it was magic, but also realized that it was something different and asked him whether it was Kai. Kang replied that it was similar to Kai and fired multiple energy balls at him, which shocked his team members. Kang wondered if he managed to land a hit on him, but to his surprise, he was unharmed. However, Gibong was angry about his torn clothes and decided to attack. But Kang said that he gives up and is impressed by his strength, and said that he can stay here from now on because he won against the vice captain. But Gibong didn't end it here and punched him, knocking him out, and then instructed his team to help the newbie unpack, which shocked the entire team. The Fire Dragon Nest, with an 8-star ranking, which is the highest rank in existence, is surrounded by many theories. However, all the experts agree on one thing. If the Fire Dragon wakes up, South Korea will face its biggest crisis since its creation. Inside the dungeon, Taram killed a Fire Dragon hatchling in order to awaken the Fire Dragon. The Fire Dragon opened its eyes, and the demise of humanity had begun. 10 minutes before the Fire Dragon awakening, the Shield Guild had captured a Fire Dragon hatchling. The director expressed his annoyance, acknowledging that it was still a Fire Dragon despite being a hatchling. Taram asked the plan to lure Gibong out. The director proposed the plan that by killing the hatchling it will wake up the Fire Dragon. So to deal with it, the government would send special forces to deal with it, and also a special dungeon management team. In other words, Gibong's team. Taram questioned how they would deal with the angry dragon after dealing with Gibong. The director replied that he will use a daystone to seal the dragon. The director explained that in Saudi Arabia they conducted some experiments which revealed something important, that they could use the daystone to induce the dragon to enter another period of slumber. Taram killed the hatchling while laughing and admiring the plan that finally Gibong will come. In a park, a student was looking at the sky when his teacher asked him what was wrong. He showed his teacher that the sky had turned red. Army tanks arrived while the news broadcaster informed the people about an emergency situation and urged the citizens to evacuate to nearby underground bunkers. The news broadcaster repeated the announcement and informed the people that the government has declared martial law. The announcement created panic in people, reminding them of that day 10 years ago. During an interview with a professor in the newsroom, the professor explained that a great disaster had befallen them and told them that there was a similar case in Russia, where they gave up on clearing the dungeon with players and fielded it by dropping countless nuclear warheads on it. However, it was possible there because the dungeon was in Siberia where there were no inhabitants, but it is not possible in the city of Incheon. The people became frightened and remembered what happened a decade ago. Sangrung cursed the Shield Guild and ordered to contact the National Intelligence Service to find out the Shield Guild's whereabouts. She also questioned the president's whereabouts, and her team informed her that he has already evacuated to the underground bunker and has given her full authority. She sighed as she knew that he just wanted her to die in his stead. The helicopters reached near the dungeon, and the pilot informed that the dungeon is only 3 kilometers away. She ordered the pilots to send an emergency notice to every guild master. When the anchors asked the professor about the solution to the problem, he did not have any certain answer. San ordered to summon 100 players of the nation. Gibong and his team arrived at the entrance of the dungeon while his team was scared. Even the vice captain was trembling. They knew that all of them here are just sacrificial pawns to buy time until the 100 players arrived at the scene, and once they step beyond that wall they all will die. While Kang was excited to see the Fire Dragon's home, the vice captain asked Kim what they should do with him. They just brought him along half-heartedly, and he was not even admitted into the team officially. Kim told him to let him be. He followed them by his will. Gibong thought that he might be useful for them and ordered the team to enter the dungeon. As they tried to enter the dungeon, everyone was ejected back except Gibong and Kang, leaving them in shock. It surprised him, and he thought that he had to fight alone, but was shocked to see Kang inside the dungeon. Taram appeared and immediately attacked Gibong and was surprised to see his speed. Gibong activated his body enhancement skill to block the attack and was surprised to see that he was injured. The system informed him that his defense had been ignored. Seeing helicopters flying and a situation of martial law, Chen Yubin, a ranked 4 player, wondered if the fire dragon had really woken up. Yui, who was a rank 99 player and was live streaming about Inchen's sky being turned red and thought whether the dragon had woken up, received an emergency notice. Every player in the country received the emergency notice. Gibong was confused upon his injury and how his defense was ignored, while Taram showed disappointment in him. Gibong noticed the Shield Guild tattoo on Taram's body and said that his priority is the fire dragon, and he had no time for him. Taram asked him not to pay attention to the dragon, and that he will die here right now, and attacked again, provoking him. Gibong thought to finish it first and attacked him, destroying the area, but was left kneeling and confused about what happened. Meanwhile, the director, who was seeing all this from afar, laughed. Outside the dungeon, Gibong's team wondered what they would do when the Prime Minister showed up and asked about Kim Gibong and why they had not gone inside the dungeon. The vice captain answered that they could not go inside because of the fire dragon's barrier. She checked the barrier and found that it was not created by the fire dragon, but by the Shield Guild in order to kill. At the entrance of the dungeon, reporters also reached. The Prime Minister ordered to get them out of here, but her crew answered it was not possible since not only national agencies but international companies were also there. Inside the dungeon, both Kim and Taram continued fighting, with Gibong taking constant damage. Meanwhile, the director revealed that the vice captain possessed the Light Dragon's Fang, a powerful weapon from a 7-star dungeon. Despite its size, it is as light as a feather to the wielder and strong enough to cut through any metal. The guild's members said that they had heard the rumors about it being mythical grade. The director told them that it is a mystical item enchanted with countless spells, and one of the famous spells among them is Reflect. At the same time, the system also told Kim about Light Dragon's Fang Reflect trait, that it can reflect all the damage the blade receives. Gibong realized that he was hurting himself by his own attacks and was impressed by the weapon's power. Taram attacked him again, but Gibong braced the injury and asked him to give that weapon, saying that it would be perfect for his subordinate. Taram was shocked to see Gibong still standing after losing that much blood. Gibong told him that he has more blood than most people, which helps him to withstand the damage. The system told him that most of the damage he received was from his own reflected attack, and teasingly laughed at him. Gibong scolded the system for providing him this information late and called it useless. Gibong's standing angered Taram more, and he attacked him again. Gibong countered his attack, but due to the reflectability, he suffered from damage. Taram was shocked to see Kim Gibong's power evidenced by the destruction caused by their clash. Gibong expected this destruction and decided to check how much this weapon can reflect. The fire dragon was awake and was posing damage to the barrier. It created panic and concern among the Shield Guild's members. The director told them not to panic because it is not easy to break the barrier of an 8-star dungeon from the inside, and they still have time until the dungeon breaks. The dragon was continuously attacking the barrier, and the director knew that the dungeon barrier was getting weaker and acknowledged the strength of an 8-star boss monster, and felt that they might need to use the Daystone earlier than planned. Looking at the battlefield, he said that he hoped that the Vice Master finishes him off before the time passes. "Finish who off?" someone asked. The director replied, "Of course, Kim Gibong," and realized that the person was not one of them. Kang approached the director, and Shield Guild members recognized him as Gibong's ally and ran towards him. While in the battlefield, despite the Dragon Fang Reflect, Gibong continued attacking. Taram taunted him for being a fool and was confident that no physical attack could avoid getting reflected. The stronger Kim Gibong, the more damage he would receive, and was sure that he had already won this battle as his opponent was a physical attacker and admired his weapon. Taram asked Gibong to give up as he has no chance of winning, but he persisted with his attack. Suddenly Taram started to stumble and wondered what was happening to him. Seonggyeong felt the tremors outside the dungeon and was sure it was not the fire dragon and thought of Kim Ki-bong. She tried to break the barrier forcefully, but one of her subordinates reminded her that she is currently South Korea's commander-in-chief, and if she joins the battle now and leaves her post, the raid will most definitely fail even with the top 100 rankers. And if that happens, it will be the end of their nation. She reluctantly agreed and stopped. Taram felt relieved when Kibong stopped his attacks and wondered if it was over, but Kibong urged him to keep blocking and continued his assault. It was a bizarre battle in which one side keeps punching while the other keeps blocking. Nonetheless, the one losing blood and gaining wound after wound is the attacker. Taram fell to his knees and started coughing blood and got confused about how he took damage since the light dragon's fang should have reflected the attack, and then noticed a crack in his sword. Kibong punched again and asked him to keep blocking and continued attacks, causing even more damage and destroying the sword before pushing Taram into the ground, and with this the fight came to an end. Kang Hwi informed the guild members about Kibong's victory, which shocked them. Kibong picked up the broken sword and felt disappointed. When the director saw Taram lying on the ground, he couldn't believe his eyes. Since Taram was among the top 3 powerful persons of South Korea, nobody had ever thought that he would lose a battle. The Shield Guild could commit countless acts that transcend common sense until today because of a certain precondition, which was their strength, but just now that entire logic had collapsed because of a simple player, Kim Ki-bong. The guild members asked the director what to do. The director replied that their plan was to awaken the fire dragon, to lure Kim Ki-bong and kill him and use the Daystone to reseal the dragon, but now the plan has changed. While Kim Ki-bong will die trying to stop the fire dragon on his own, and the world would honor him as a hero, but the dead heroes always get forgotten. The Prime Minister and the government have no proof to accuse the Shield for Kibong's death, and without him the government's defense would collapse, while the Shield Guild would be hailed by people as the one who resealed the dragon. He ordered the members to withdraw and use their return stones. One of the members showed concern about not using the Daystone. The director replied, even if the South Korea's top 100 rankers were to assemble, the raid has a low chance of succeeding. Multiple top rankers are members of the Shield Guild, and if they order them not to participate in the raid, then it will be impossible. So the plan is to arrive during the climax of the battle and use the Daystone during a decisive moment. It is different from their original plan, but the results will be similar, and in this way they will be the heroes who defended the country from the fire dragon. And if that happens, even the Prime Minister won't be able to condemn them, even if she knows the truth. The director commanded the Shield members to retreat, leaving Taram behind. One of the members hesitated, but the director ordered him to retrieve Taram in front of Kibong. The Shield members exited the dungeon using return stones. Kang asked Kibong if they would pursue them, but Kibong insisted that the priority is the fire dragon. The fire dragon continued its attack on the barrier, while Seonggyeong was informed that the damage to the barrier has reached 89%, and after 5 minutes the dungeon will break. One of her subordinates asked her to order players to attack already. People outside the dungeon also saw the fire dragon, while the woman informed that the barrier has not broken yet. It was just the second barrier on the inside which was blocking their view. Seonggyeong thought that Shield Guild removed their barrier, which means they had achieved their goal, and thought that Kim Ki-bong must have died. Suddenly people noticed that there were people inside the barrier. Seonggyeong also saw and found that it was Kim Ki-bong and Kang Hwi. Meanwhile, the TV crew spotted a person on the ground and identified him as Park Taram of the Shield. Seonggyeong was shocked to see Kibong's power and ordered her subordinates to get him out of the dungeon, but they informed that they could not contact him because of the dungeon's interference. The dragon attacked the barrier again, and the damage rate is 97%, and the dungeon break is about to begin. Seonggyeong realized that they needed to delay the dungeon break to prevent the fire dragon from getting out of the dungeon and putting the entire country in danger. She looked at the gathered players and estimated that they were only 30 of them, and they were not enough to face the dragon, and assumed that they needed at least 80 of the top 100 rankers to be ready for the battle. The man informed her that they finally managed to contact Gibong. She took the receiver from him, but it was Kang who picked the earpiece first, but Gibong eventually took it from him and spoke with her. She asked about his condition, to which he replied that it's bearable, and asked for further instruction. She reluctantly asked for more time, knowing that it meant risking his life. He agreed to her request and hung up. The reporters reported that the people inside the dungeon were moving closer to the fire dragon. An official raised concerns about Gibong's actions and asked will he take responsibility if things go wrong. She saw him with anger and told him that he is South Korea's hope and future, and right now she had ordered him to sacrifice himself for all of them. Gibong approached the dragon while his health was below 8%. The system recommended him to take a break. He replied that even he wanted to take a break, but he can't. The system said he can easily escape without having to fight. He replied that he can't run away because everything will be destroyed and it will put his mother in danger. The system suggested he escape overseas with his mother, but Gibong called it trash. Kang asked Gibong if he was really going to fight the dragon. He replied that they don't have any other option, but Kang said that it is powerful. Suddenly, the fire dragon launched an attack, breathing fire and destroying the surrounding area. Kang used his shield to block the attack. Gibong was impressed about his skill and asked about it. Before Kang could explain it, the dragon attacked, sending him flying. Kang landed while being unconscious. Gibong said to the dragon now it was between both of them. The dragon launched the attack on him, but he dodged. The dragon then followed with a tail strike which Gibong caught with one arm, but this caused him extreme damage and his health dropped to 7%. Despite this, he pushed the tail back and counterattacked the dragon, striking its head, while his health decreased to 4% due to recoil from his attacks. He attacked the dragon, but it breathed fire at him. He admitted that its fire can even melt steel, and without Kang's help he had to dodge the attack, realizing he couldn't take it because of his bad health. He noticed that the dragon's attack was in the direction of the barrier, which was already at its limit. Seongrong ordered the people to run away and Kang arrived and blocked the attack. Seongrong wondered who he was, although he fell on the ground. He was happy that he managed to stop the dragon's attack. Gibong praised him and then turned towards the dragon and decided to finish it. Both prepared powerful attacks. With a powerful strike, Gibong was able to defeat the fire dragon and clear the 8-star dungeon. The system informed him that his strength, agility, and magic power had increased. His stats were already maxed out, and he obtained a unique skill called the First Dragon Slayer. The system warned him that his health is below 3% and advised him to heal. He ordered the system to shut up since he was already exhausted, while Kang arrived bragging about how he blocked the dragon's attack. Gibong became irritated by both the system and Kang's constant yapping. Gibong noticed something on the dragon's corpse. It was the dragon's heart, a source of immense energy. Since Gibong killed the monster before it could spend all its energy, there was an excess amount of energy left within its body. The fire dragon's body exploded, and the officials outside told Seongrong that since the dragon woke up, it was the largest amount of energy which was released until. Seongrong was shocked along with the people outside, and then she was informed that all the rankers except for those who were affiliated with the Shield Guild had arrived, and the army was ready to provide support. With her weapon out, she decided that it is time to break the barriers, but they suddenly disappeared on their own and small flakes began to pour down. Everyone thought that it was snow, but Seongrong realized that it was not snow, and being concerned for Gibong, she rushed inside and saw the destruction and concluded that it was raining ash and wished that Gibong would be alive and shouted his name aloud, but saw Kang emerging from the rubble. When she asked about Gibong's whereabouts, Kang pointed to where he was leaning against the wall looking all worn out. She approached him and commended him for his good job. At the Shield Guild building, the director was informed that the Fire Dragon's Nest dungeon has been cleared, but he walked away without answering questions about their next move. The news broadcaster informed about the clearing of the 8-star dungeon and revealed that the Fire Dragon's Nest was cleared by one person from the Department of Defense. Additionally, the Vice Guild Master of Shield Guild Park Taram and his team were arrested by the Prime Minister personally claiming the Fire Dragon crisis, and all members of the Shield Guild were charged with treason and received severe punishment. The main culprit of this incident, the Shield Guild's director, James Lee, is missing and wanted by the government. Seongryong was at a conference looking extremely happy when the reporters asked her about the recent event. She responded by stating that the details had already been made public and suggested that the reporters were more interested in a particular individual involved in the incident. She then introduced Kim Kibong, who was nervous facing the press, and introduced himself as the captain of the Special Dungeon Management Team. Kibong and Kang met with Lee Ji-eun, who praised them for clearing the fire dragon's nest, while Kang was excited about the praise, but Kibong told him to shut his mouth. She asked him if it was his first time in that place, and he nodded. Kibong asked about the people behind Lee Ji-eun. She referred to Kibong as the hero who saved the country and mentioned that people show a lot of interest in heroes. She told Kang that he was also very famous, and she had heard rumors that he already has a fan club, which excited him, but he was interrupted by Kibong, and he asked about their purpose of meeting. Ji-eun revealed that they were here for a physical examination, explaining that at the time of Kibong's enlistment, the appropriate equipment was not available to record his score in the headquarters database. When Kim Kibong joined the military, no proper equipment was available to measure his abilities, and he could not take the official examination. As a result, he did not have a rank in the military's database and could remain relatively anonymous. However, if his rank had been determined and uploaded, the Shield Guild would not have made such a big mistake. Kibong was eager to begin the physical examination, but she informed him that they were still waiting for their host. The host named Yui arrived, and they exchanged introductions. Yui showed her intense desire to meet him and began to praise his heroic skills and his pretty hands. Kibong, being irritated, asked to start the test. Yui started her live stream and told them that she was with Kim Kibong and his physical examination was about to begin, and also mentioned Kang's presence. Yui was shocked to see how the lab was renovated and changed by the time. Lee Ji-eun informed that they didn't have proper equipment first to examine his abilities, so they manufactured new ones. The test started with a grip strength machine, which can measure up to S-rank grip strength. Yui went first and was instructed to clench the rod with all her strength. She was nervous as her subscribers were also watching her and got on a rank, which made her happy. This time Kim Kibong went and was given the same instruction, even though he was doubtful. But she told him that the machine's material was tested by Gu Seongryong and wouldn't break easily, so he clenched the rod, but to everyone's surprise the machine was destroyed. Kang Hwi also felt bad because he also wanted to test his strength. But this was just the beginning. The giant punching machine couldn't withstand Kibong's punch and was demolished, and the crystal ball for testing magic power also shattered, leaving everyone surprised, and Kang regretted that he should have gone before him. Kibong apologized. Meanwhile, Yui suggested that now they should head over to the next segment, which was interviewing. The interview began with Yui asking them to introduce themselves to the people. Over 100,000 people. Kang was surprised and looked around for the audience, while Kibong brought him back to his seat and apologized on his behalf. Yui asked whether Kang's reaction was genuine or scripted. Kibong replied that it was real, which amazed Yui. Then Kim Kibong introduced himself as captain of the Special Dungeon Management Team and hesitated to tell his age because he wasn't sure. The system informed him that his physical age was 30 years old. He told the audience his age was 30 years. Yui said that she expected him to be younger. Kang claimed that he was older, which led Kibong to hit him. Yui asked how he became so strong and why did he decide to work for the government. Was it because of the salary? Lee Ji-eun knew the answer, that it was for revenge for his mother. Kibong stated that he has a family and told his story, which made Yui emotional. The public assumed that Yui had also lost someone special due to the monsters. While in a certain household watching the interview, Yui's parents watched and questioned her behavior. Her mother was angry, stating that they were still alive. while her father tried to calm her down by saying that their daughter is popular and needs to put on a show to gain popularity. The interview ended, and Kang regretted not being able to contribute to the conversation. Gibong asked if their task was completed, but Jian hesitated, saying that Yui would tell him about the next task. Gibong expressed a preference for dealing with a dungeon instead of wasting time on non-essential tasks. Jian told him that the next task would be helpful in finding a way to end the madness, fulfilling her promise to assist Gibong. Gibong initially thought Jian's words were just empty promises used to recruit him, but she insisted that she has been working hard to reach their goal. He asked for the details of his next task. Jian led Gibong and Kang to a facility where different materials were being tested. Kang seemed quite excited about the place. Jian explained that there are many aspects of dungeons that can't be explained with physics today, but recently researchers have come to understand more and more characteristics. While Kang, not understanding a word, wondered what they were talking about, she said to understand a certain phenomenon properly, they must first comprehend the energy, and went on to explain that they have research about where the dungeon's energy comes from and how it is preserved. She said that if someone can control that energy, they will most likely be able to control the dungeon, and they will finally have a small solution. Gibong asked if that meant they could control the dungeons, but Jiun said they have not gotten that far yet. She directed his attention to a crystal, which was later confirmed by the system as a fragment of the Daystone. To Jiun's surprise, Gibong seemed to have knowledge about it. She then informed him that the next task involving Yui is exploring a dungeon that potentially contains a Daystone. Gibong was taken aback by this revelation and asked if it was possible to know in advance about the presence of the Daystone. This surprised him, as he had only encountered a single Daystone despite clearing countless dungeons and defeating tons of boss monsters. Jian explained that they were able to make predictions about the Daystone thanks to the remains of the fire dragon. They believed it could possibly help to control dungeons. Gibong asked why he had to explore the dungeon with Yui instead of doing it on his own. Jiun explained that the dungeon in question can only activate if 3 A-class or higher players enter it together, and since it was not an emergency, they could not recruit many players. She also mentioned that involving a large guild could lead to confidential information being leaked. Gibong concluded that Yui must be trustworthy enough to accompany him. Jiun told him that the third member of this mission is someone very close to the Prime Minister, Ms. Yui. The Prime Minister and her associate are both trustworthy, which is the reason the Prime Minister gave permission to Yui to continue using her personal channel. Jiun was interrupted by a phone call. It was Yui. Jiun asked them to head outside and chat with everyone. Kang expressed his desire to join the mission, but Gibong pointed out that he can't because there can only be 3 people inside at a time. Kang insisted. Then a jeep arrived at the dungeon's entrance with Yui coming out while live streaming and telling subscribers that she had a date with Gibong. Gibong told Kang that he can't take him because he has to partner up with Yui, but Kang said that there is still a spot left. Meanwhile, a man also came out of the jeep, and Gibong pointed in his direction, saying that now there are 3. The man greeted Gibong and introduced himself as the master of the Hwarang Guild, Chen Yubin. He was also one of the first people to awaken 10 years ago since dungeons first appeared. He fought against the monsters in the Republic of Korea alongside the Prime Minister and became one of the heroes who saved the country. Gibong introduced himself to Chen Yubin and shook his hand while Yui documented their progress with her stream. Yui mentioned that they would be entering a 6-star dungeon named Moth Chamber. Although it was Yui's first time entering a 6-star dungeon, she expressed confidence in being with 2 strong players. The subscribers hoped that they would come back safe. She also informed her viewers that streaming inside the dungeon is not possible and ended her stream. She greeted Gibong and asked if he already knew the details from Jiun. He confirmed that he did. Gibong remembered Jiun's instructions that he must retrieve the Daystone. Gibong and the team prepared to enter the dungeon. Kang was instructed to return to headquarters and was told that if anything happened, he had to deal with it alongside the vice captain. Once inside, Gibong asked to start the raid and was shocked to see Yui set up another camera to document their progress, but it was not a live stream. Being annoyed, they started the raid. However, after exploring for a while, Yubin found it strange that they did not encounter any monsters yet, because typically there would be flying moths at the beginning of the dungeon. Yui suggested that no monsters appearing could be a good thing as they could focus on subjugating the boss monster. She showed no concern about the absence of monsters. Yubin said since it's a moth chamber, there must be flying monsters, but they hadn't found any. Yui asked him not to worry since they had Gibong with them who cleared an 8-star dungeon. They continued exploring, but Gibong noticed that it was getting dark quickly, while Yui explained that it was due to the moth chamber environment. Yubin suggested camping for the night, as it takes 3 days to clear the dungeon, and Yui created a campfire using her magic. She also added that because the moth chamber takes a lot of time to clear than an average dungeon, Gibong could also see the sky turning black and had no stars and was completely empty. In the headquarters, Vice Captain Han Ji-woong was busy with paperwork when an alarm went off, indicating a dungeon break in Gyeonggi Province. One of the members informed him, but they were worried as Gibong was not around to help. Han remembered something and ordered to summon all the team members and said they still have hope, thinking about Kang Hwi. While Kang was crying in his room, he went to his room feeling awkward about their initial meeting and pondered what to address him as he knew Kang's strength. One of the members addressed him as a newbie, which shocked Han. Kang asked their purpose and they informed him about the dungeon break, but he refused to go as Gibong wasn't there. Han thought that fighting dungeon breaks is a battle against time. If they don't bring him with them, the consequences will be tremendous. Han Jun realized that they needed to act immediately before the situation of the dungeon break worsens. He thought of a strategy to persuade him, saying that Gibong will praise him if he clears the dungeon. The team member suggested to Han that he is not a fool and can't trick him like this. Kang thought that if he dealt with the dungeon, he would definitely be praised by Gibong, and to everyone's surprise, he agreed and asked them to lead the way. In the moth dungeon, Gibong ordered the system to find moths. The system initiated its search, but found that there were no moths in that area, which shocked him. Gibong informed Yubin and Yui that there were no moths in a radius of 3 kilometers and ordered them to speed up their expedition. Yubin asked him how he knew about it, to which he replied that he can somehow. Yubin wondered in shock that an S-class player who cleared an 8-star dungeon can also sense monsters in a wide area. Yui suggested speeding up and told them it's a race up to the top and started running. Gibong thought if he continued running at their pace he would not be able to finish his task soon, which was to retrieve the Daystone. He activated his skill and flew like a ray of light. Yubin asked if it was magic, but Yui replied that it was not magic because she could not sense any magic. Yubin wondered what it was. In the air, Gibong ordered the system to locate the Daystone. The system completed its search and initiated navigation towards the destination. Gibong hurried towards that place and saw the Daystone. While he tried to get near to it, the monsters appeared, leaving him in shock. The system told him about the numbers of the monsters, which were over 100. Moths began to attack him. Yubin and Yui wondered what was happening there and started to run. Yui suggested that if they continued to run like this, they could not return in time and used spring shield magic to reach that place. But they were shocked to see that Gibong, in only 5 minutes, killed all the monsters on his own. Kang was excited to go on the mission. While in the chamber, Yubin and Yui asked Gibong if he was fine. He confirmed that he was okay. As they approached the Daystone, they realized that there was a barrier around it. Yui volunteered to destroy the barrier but failed. Gibong instructed them to step back and destroyed it with a single punch. They then closed in on the Daystone, and the system asked if he wanted to absorb it, but he refused and chose to have it analyzed first. When Gibong touched the stone, they were enveloped in a dark substance. Army tanks and helicopters were everywhere near the army base. Kang and the team reached the dungeon location where Han saluted the lieutenant colonel and inquired about the situation. The lieutenant stated that the dungeon had been acting strangely lately, and they were unsure if this was related to the current situation. Han added that he had read a report mentioning inaccuracies in dungeon predictions recently. Han expressed concern about the situation. When asked about Gibong's whereabouts, it was revealed that he was on another mission ordered by the Prime Minister. The lieutenant colonel saw this as bad news and expressed concerns about their lack of preparation without Gibong. Han suggested that there was still another way, and the lieutenant asked if he was sure about it. After some consideration, he was given permission to proceed with his plan. Han was aware that there were only a few people in the country who could fill in for Kim Gibong, and among them, Kang was the most capable, which he personally knew. Meanwhile, Yui found herself alone and disoriented, wondering about her whereabouts and the possibility of being in a place similar to the moth chamber. She quickly brushed this thought aside as she realized it was a cave and concluded that it was because of that stone. She wondered about others and shouted their names. Meanwhile, the system activated night vision for Gibong. Gibong asked the system about the location. The system informed him that it was a nameless dungeon and asked why they were brought there. The system replied it might be because of the Daystone. The system advised that if he absorbs the Daystone, it will be able to know why. Gibong refused. Gibong thought that he was only paying attention to the Daystone and was not focused, so he could not react when they were suddenly transported. He found this situation troublesome and decided to deal with it soon and leave this place as soon as possible. Gibong heard some noise while Yui was telling her subscribers that she was scared, and since she thought that there were not any monsters nearby, she used all her mana on a flame attack, and now she has no mana. Yubin was shocked to see huge wolves inside the cave. Yubin also faced these wolves and was amazed at them. He began to eliminate them and thought that something bad was happening there. When Gibong faced the wolves, he thought that they were cute dogs.